Hello everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm not against her, I'm just thinking about your future. How many times have words like that landed on you like a warning, even when they were wrapped in love? Tonight's story asks, what do you do when your parents cling to the word future, but your heart has already chosen a woman with a past and a child who isn't your blood? If this touches you, don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss the next stories. On paper, James looked like the kind of son any parent would be proud of. He had a steady position. People at the company greeted him with respect. His name sat on reports and contracts. But the part of his life that mattered most was the only part that never felt approved. He had given his heart to a woman who had already walked through one broken marriage and was now raising a little girl who shared none of his blood, yet somehow carried all of his love. His father's story had been written on rougher pages. Mr. Sun had climbed out of a kind of poverty that leaves marks you still feel even when your bank account looks full. In his mind, a good marriage started with a clean background, no unfinished stories, no extra responsibility, and certainly no child who might bring more risk than joy. Love was acceptable as long as it stayed behind a strong wall of safety. You could feel that invisible wall even in the softest moments at home. Dinner looked normal from the outside, dishes on the table, the news murmuring from the TV, a chair slightly pushed out for the son who arrived late. Yet almost every meal ended the same way, a long sigh, chopsticks set down a little too hard, someone leaving the table before the soup cooled. At work, when James texted his father about a contract or a branch office, the reply arrived almost instantly. When he sent a photo of Diep and the little girl, the message showed seen. And then nothing. Parents like Mr. Sun don't become strict because they enjoy saying no. Years of living one step away from hunger train them to believe that one wrong choice can destroy everything. Their fear quietly turns into an unwritten rule their children never chose. You are not allowed to fail the way I did. The next day started like any other good day on James's calendar. The morning meeting ended with nods. A junior manager thanked him for his guidance. Someone joked that the branch would fall apart without him. Numbers lined up. On the whiteboard, his plans looked neat, controlled, safe. Then his phone buzzed. A short message from his father flashed on the screen. We need to talk about that woman again. One line, no exclamation marks, no insults. Still, something inside him dropped. In one vibration, he stopped being the director in charge of targets and became the son whose choices kept being reviewed like a risky proposal. Meanwhile, at home, a different meeting was already underway. In the family's living room, Mr. Sun sat with a thin folder on the coffee table. It wasn't an official file, just scraps of information he had collected. A neighbor's comment about Diep's divorce, the fact that the child was not her blood, the line on her resume where formal education simply ended. He examined each detail the way he used to check suppliers and partners, searching for missing pieces, hidden danger, any sign this love would not pass. Across from him, Mrs. Huyen stood by the window, arms folded. She recognized that look in his eyes. Years ago, he wore the same expression when a bad deal nearly cost them everything. The difference now was that the deal on the table was her son's future. She understood the fear that made her husband so cautious. She also saw the hurt in their child every time his happiness was treated like a business risk. In many families, marriage is not just between two people. It becomes a shared investment, reputation with the relatives, what the neighbors will whisper, the old sting of being looked down on. Love gets weighed against gossip, against shame, against the desperate wish to finally be respected. By the time James stepped out of the office that evening, he finally had words for something he had felt for months. Every time he mentioned Diep and the little girl in front of his father, he wasn't just sharing news. He was placing his heart on a negotiation table, like a file waiting to be stamped, approved, or crossed out in red. Some families treat love like paperwork that has to pass every test, instead of a story. Two people are trying to write together. That evening, James didn't drive straight home. He took the longer road that curved past the edge of town, where the city lights thinned out and the smell of wet soil slipped in through the open window. He stopped at a small house, still half under construction, the place he and Diep had been slowly turning into someday. Diep was there in an old t-shirt, sleeves rolled up, dust on her arms. When she heard his footsteps, she looked up, and the exhaustion in her face loosened into relief. "You're late," she said quietly. "Your parents again?" He nodded and stepped closer. For a moment he just stood there, taking in the sight of her in this half-made home, like she already belonged here, even if the walls didn't. He reached for her hand, feeling the roughness on her fingers from work and from carrying a child who wasn't her blood, but had become her whole world. "They want me to rethink everything," he admitted. "Not just you, her too." Diep's shoulders tensed. "James," she whispered, "I never wanted you to have to choose between us and your parents. I don't want to be the reason you lose your family." He shook his head. "That's not what scares me most." His eyes drifted to the tiny pair of sandals by the door. "What I'm really afraid of is waking up one day and having to tell her, 'Grandpa doesn't want to see you.' I can handle being poor again." "I can't handle her growing up feeling like she's outside the family, like she doesn't belong anywhere." For a while, the only sounds were a dog barking in the distance and the wind slipping through the gaps in the roof. Diep walked over to the sandals, picked them up, and held them against her chest. "She's just a child," she said. "She shouldn't have to pass anyone's test just to be loved. Even if everything collapses one day, I'll still choose her. I'd start from nothing again if I had to." James knew she meant every word. She was the kind of woman who chose the child first, then chose the man willing to stand beside that choice. He stepped close enough that their foreheads touched. "Then we do this the hard way," he murmured. "We don't run from your past, and we don't cut off my parents. We build this house slowly, brick by brick, and at the same time we keep knocking on their door until they're ready to open it." Her breath shook, but she nodded. In that half-finished room, with the sky peeking through the roof, they didn't promise an easy life. They promised something else, not to let go of each other, and not to turn their love into a war that forced a little girl to choose sides. That night, the house was finally quiet enough for truth. In the living room, the TV was off. The teapot sat between them, untouched. Mr. Sun paced the same strip of floor he had worn down over the years, while Mrs. Huyen watched him in silence. "Do you remember?" she asked gently, "when we only had 2 bowls in this house?" He stopped. "The roof leaked," she said. The neighbors called me foolish for marrying a man with nothing. Your mother wanted me to pick someone safer." She gave a small, sad smile. "If people had judged us the way you're judging that girl, we wouldn't be sitting in this big living room today." He looked away, jaw tight. She lowered her voice. "Right now, you're using the pain of our past to lock our son in a cage. You're asking more from his love than anyone ever asked from ours." James came home later that night to a dining room lit by a single lamp and a stack of papers pushed to one side. His father didn't shout. He just said very quietly, "I don't want you to repeat my life. I don't want to see you carrying your little girl from one rented room to another, counting every coin and pretending you're not tired. I worked too hard for that." James sat down slowly. For once, he didn't start with, "I love her." "I know," he said. "That's why I've been preparing. The house isn't finished, but the land is paid. I have savings, insurance, backup plans. I'm not walking into this blind, Dad. I'm choosing it." Mr. Sun sighed. "I still don't know that woman. I don't know that child. I don't know what really happened before she came to you." "You're right," James replied. "You don't know her story. That's on me." So he told him, simply. A rainy day at the commune office. A baby left at the gate, wrapped in a thin blanket with only a birth date pinned to her clothes. A file stamped and shelved like lost property. And Diep, who barely had enough for herself, sitting on a hard bench until dark because she couldn't stand the thought of that baby crying alone. Bringing every paper and signature home, not to hide anything, but because she had chosen a child nobody else wanted and refused to walk away. He remembered how she had wrapped her own scarf around the little girl and whispered, "From today on, you're not alone." Mr. Sun leaned back and closed his eyes. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. "If that child is the one you've decided to protect," he said slowly, "and that woman is the one you've decided to walk beside, then maybe the problem isn't their background anymore. Maybe the real question is whether your heart is strong enough to carry them when things get hard. Here is what I can offer," he added. "Don't rush. Focus on your company. Make sure your home is steady. When things are in place, your mother and I will be the ones to help you prepare the wedding properly, not as your enemies, as your parents." For a second, James forgot how to breathe. This was the same man who once said, "If you marry her, you're no longer my son." Now he was talking about a wedding done right. Shock hit first, then pressure, heavy and real. But underneath it, something else began to rise. Hope. For the first time, he didn't feel like a boy on trial. He felt like a man being trusted. The afternoon air outside the villa was still, the kind of quiet that makes every sound feel louder. At the gate, Diep stood with one hand wrapped around the little girl's fingers. She wasn't being announced as the divorced woman or the one with a child. She was just a woman in a simple dress with a small backpack on her shoulder and a heartbeat you could almost hear. She drew in a long breath, then gently nudged the girl forward. Tiny shoes scraped against stone. The child looked up at the high walls, then back at her mother's face, searching for a sign that it was safe to keep walking. The front door opened. Mr. Sun stepped out, not in a suit, not towering from the top of the stairs, just a father in a plain shirt at his own doorway. For a moment, his eyes landed on the girl's hand, clutching Diep's, and the old reflex almost tightened his brow. Instead, he forced his shoulders to relax and walked closer. "Welcome," he said quietly. Not a speech, not a test, just one warm enough word so the little girl didn't feel the need to hide behind her mother's legs. Behind him, Mrs. Huyen watched from inside, her fingers resting lightly on the doorframe. So many nights she had whispered into the dark, not with grand rituals, but with the tired honesty of a mother. "If anyone is listening, don't give my son an easy life, give him a kind one." Now, seeing her husband try to say the right word after so many wrong ones, she sent up one more silent thank you for the chance to love better this time. And maybe that's the real lesson of this story. The turning point didn't come from winning a single argument. It came from slowly learning each other's language. A mother speaking through shared memories, a son speaking through responsibility, a father finally daring to admit his fear instead of hiding it behind anger. If you're standing in the same place, between the family you love and the person your heart chose, maybe you don't have to start by proving you're right. Maybe you can start by naming what your parents are afraid of, not just what you dream of. And if you've ever been caught between "Dad forbids it" and "Dad will stand behind me," share this story with someone who needs to hear that sometimes the gate does open, not just for one girl, but for a new way of loving for the whole family. In the end, nothing magical happened. No lottery win, no perfect fairy tale. Just a father taking one step closer, a son standing his ground with gentleness, and a little girl finally being welcomed through a door that was once closed to her. Sometimes the bravest thing a family can do is admit, "I was afraid," and then choose love anyway. If this story touched something in you, please give the video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapters. And I'd really love to hear from you in the comments. Which moment hit you the hardest? The father's question, the story of the little girl at the clinic gate, or the simple word "welcome" at the door?